This is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of the Contrarian. I'm delighted to have with us Congressman Eric Swalwell from California. Welcome.
Thanks, Jen. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, perhaps under adverse circumstances. Let me talk a little bit about Donald Trump slash Musk's foreign forays. In cutting off USAID and making a lot of pronouncements about tariffs, what does that do to America's standing in the world? And because he's so sensitive about China, what does it do vis-a-vis our relationship with China on the world stage?
There's no time in history that you can point to where putting tariffs on trading partners has lowered costs. And it's not going to work in this case. And all it has done is wreak chaos on the markets. It's upset our allies. I had a Canadian delegation in my office last week, and they were quite shaken by this. And from their perspective, they're like, wait, we're your closest allies. Like we've gone shoulder to shoulder in some of the most difficult conflicts in the world, and this is how you're treating us. And over our immigration policy, like the last I checked, the issue was not at the northern border. So again, it just feels like bullying to them. And I asked this delegation, I said, tell me about this 51st state idea. Is there any movement at all in your country for this? And they said, no, absolutely zero. So again, we're just acting like a neighborhood tyrannical bully that does not believe in self-governance, but rather we're going to, bully them into becoming a 51st state or to just try and destroy their economy, but also while increasing the cost of everything we consume.
When we cut off, or perhaps it's been restored now, USAID, that was, in my view, a help to American influence in the world and to making friends. What does it do, even if it's turned back on, to see America step away, become an uncertain ally, an uncertain partner for many countries in the developing world?
Most Americans know what it means to make an investment. If you're a home owner, you've made an investment in the equity in your home because you know that at the end of the day, it'll return more wealth to you than renting. If you have any sort of pension plan or retirement plan, you know that when you put money aside every month that goes into that plan, you'll have more wealth and stability in your retirement than had you not. And the same thing is true for Social Security and Medicare. USAID is an investment in our national security and our health security. When we invest in inoculating, folks on the continent of Africa against HIV, AIDS, or other infectious diseases, it's an investment in our own health. When we put a tourist center at Petra, a landmark site in Jordan, so that they can have more dollars coming into their economy because of the interest in international visitors going to Petra. And we help stand that up, something we have done, a place I visited. That means that Jordan is less dependent on the United States for foreign aid, and Jordan and other parts of the region become more stable. And a part of the region that has produced a lot of terrorism against the United States sees less terrorism. So these are investments that the United States has made, and we're going to pay a price for it. And it may not be so easy to connect the dots, but when we look back, if we completely dismantle USAID, I promise you, our health and national security will be much more vulnerable.
I want to pick up on something that you said about inflation. Tariffs are nothing but a consumer tax. In fact, around the Contrarian, we just call it the consumer tax. He has attempted to dismantle the Consumer Protection Bureau. He has rolled back an executive order that allowed negotiations on certain Medicaid care drugs. Is any of this lowering costs? I thought that was the point of his entire campaign.
Yeah, we were promised cheap eggs. All we've gotten has been cheap talk. That's it. The cost of eggs are going up, and the cost of a lot of things that we consume are going up. And the president, again, does not seem focused at all on bringing down the costs for everyday Americans. And that was the mandate that he had in this election. And instead, he sees a crisis and he seeks to, divide us. For example, an airline crash over the Potomac, a fire in Los Angeles. He likes to say that it was DEI that caused it. And to me, unless DEI stands for decreasing egg inflation, I don't want to hear it come out of Donald Trump's mouth because we were promised cheap eggs. And again, all we're getting right now from Trump is cheap talk.
One of the sort of astounding aspects, and we're only a few weeks into this administration, is the degree to which your Republican colleagues seem to have ceded all of their legislative authority to someone who's not even in the government, technically, Elon Musk. You guys have the power of appropriations. You guys have the power of oversight. How is this going to come to a head? We do have a budget process going on. And if appropriations and budgets are nothing but suggestions, why are they even bothering? How do you get this back on track?
The Republicans have essentially shut down the government. And they've done it before a vote to fund the government. And that vote will come on March 14. But as we approach it, they've essentially, shut down a number of services that are supposed to be funding, whether it's aid that was already voted on and signed into law in a bipartisan way to, bring down healthcare costs, reduce homelessness, attack addiction, keep us safer in our communities. They have sought to freeze those costs. And as Democratic attorneys general have gone to court to try and reverse this freeze, and judges have sided with those plaintiffs. Donald Trump is seeking to have those judges removed and suggesting that those decisions are illegitimate. J.D. Vance says that the judges don't have the authority to intervene against the executive branch. And then Mike Johnson, who is Article 1, the first branch of government that was created, says that the courts should take a step back. I mean, it's a complete, abdication of our duty as a Congress, and it's essentially co-signing on the executive branch, wanting to see the judicial branch also shrink. And so that is what tyranny looks like. And I am going to expect more from my Republican colleagues. And as I'm about to go into a hearing right now on, anti-censorship, I'm going to remind them that we've seen nothing but censorship from the Trump administration, and then also self-censorship by Republicans who shrink and don't want to criticize him as he commits these abuses.
It doesn't seem like, surprise, surprise, the very thin congressional majority on the Republican side has its act together. What happens when they don't have enough votes to keep the government open? And what could they even offer to Democrats that would be meaningful, since apparently they don't have any authority really to force the president to commit to any kind of budget because Elon Musk is the decision maker?
Yeah, they're not going to have the votes on March 14 to keep the government open. And I don't even think they want to keep it open because everything Trump is doing right now has been an effective shutdown of the government and a shutdown of essential services. But if past is prologue, we know that they will need Democratic votes if they do want to keep the government open. In the last Congress, about a half dozen times as we approached a government shutdown, the majority of the votes to keep the government open came from the minority party. You've never seen that in any Congress in America. You've never seen that in any parliament in the world. The majority of the votes to keep government open came from the minority party. So we know that they won't have the votes, and we will be, unified, to make sure that government services that have already been voted on, are delivered. But this right now, this is their government, and this is their government shutdown that's in process and will continue because they're going to fail the people by not having enough votes.
As we wrap up, talk about two aspects that the Trump people used to care a lot about. One was weaponization of the Justice Department. They went out and fired a bunch of FBI officials that are collecting names. It sure does seem like they are, in addition to investigating the investigators, as Pam Bondi put it, weaponizing those aspects of government. At the same time, they made a whole big to do about corruption. They fired the corruption fighters, who are the inspectors general, who are now suing, by the way, as of this morning. Talk to us a little bit about this complete hypocrisy that you see, that suddenly weaponization and corruption are the coin of the realm for the Trump/Musk presidency.
Our highest duty is to ensure the safety of the public. And the people who are at the tip of the spear to do that are FBI agents. They're on the front lines. They're the ones who combat terrorism, stop child trafficking, pursue violent criminals, go after public corruption and money laundering. And Donald Trump is threatening to mass fire anyone who worked on any case that he was investigated or indicted for. So that puts thousands of agents at risk. I've heard from many of these agents. They're working in fear. They're making plans about their own departures, and that doesn't do anything to keep us safe. Something else that doesn't keep us safe is Donald Trump releasing into our communities 1,600 violent individuals who carried out crimes brutally against police officers on his behalf. And so the way I see this is a man who would release 1,600 individuals who violently attacked the Capitol on his behalf will also be willing to put in jail at least 1,600 people who are his most vocal opponents. That does nothing to keep us safe. That will have a chilling effect on speech. But I can't speak for others. I can just tell you, Jen, it's not going to keep me quiet because I'm all in. Jen, you've been all in on this because the alternative of being all in is for us to be all out of a democracy. And so this is not the time to be quiet.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, there was a group of 100 or so who were convicted of violent crimes, and the rest of them participated in an activity that had violence as part of it.
I felt like that if you were there that day, just the mass assembly going into the Capitol, like you created an environment that allowed that violence to take place.
Well, it seems that we have met the enemy, and it is them, or the Elon Musk presidency. We were promised transparency. We have no transparency. We were promised an end to corruption. We have more corruption. We were promised reduced inflation. We're getting more price increases. So thank you for what you do. I know it takes a great deal of discipline and self-control to do what you do in the hearings, but also some guts. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and we'll be sure to have you back.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jen.